So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. I hope you're all safe and sound, and thank you for being here today. My name is Benjamin Silverstone. I am the equity analyst covering the exciting company GomSpace here at ABG. Today, we have the pleasure of having Niels Buus, the CEO of GomSpace, participating in our Introduce Investor Days. Niels, thank you very much for taking your time to be here, and we are very much looking forward to hearing your presentation on GomSpace. The word is all yours.
Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you for having me. I look forward to give you this presentation. On the first slide, on the front cover, you can see the development from nanosatellites until 12U satellites, nanosatellites of a size of 12U. I will explain more about that as we go along. Please, the second slide. Yeah, you can see we have a strong management team and a very strong board of directors. I have personally been in the technology, defense, and satellite business for 20-25 years. Have a background as an engineer and a business educated in London, and has been with GomSpace since 2014 as the CEO and the chairman since it was started. Our CFO have been with the company since it went out of the business park. And he was with us all the way through the IPO and have built now a very strong company with very strong business controlling in it, which is a very important part of our continuous development program. Besides that, we have a very strong management team with many years of experience in this kind of business. The board consists of the former CEO of Siemens in Denmark and Baltic countries. And lately we had Jens Måle in the board. He was the CEO of Therma, the biggest defense company in Denmark. And we are very happy that he joined the board as well. Next slide, please. GomSpace was founded in 2017. As you know, we produce nanosatellites and has been now in more than 50 countries and within more than 75 space missions. We were listed on Nasdaq in 2016 and has since then developed with subsidiaries in Sweden, in Uppsala, in Luxembourg, and a sales office in the United States, in Washington. We have about 140 employees. You can see on the chart on the financial development that we have grown quite substantially over the years. We have a little setback that we are more or less recovered from now. And the latest what's called outlook for the year is between 160 and 180 million for this year. And we obviously, with so short time back of the year, are still expecting to reach that. Okay, next slide. The fascination of space or space exploration started about 100 years ago. The first liquid rocket was sent up in 1926. 43 years later, we were standing on the moon. Then we had the space shuttle for a period of time, about 40 years also. And now a new era with the new space economy have started, where a number of rich people are putting money, serious money, into the space business, and they are aiming for Mars. And we can ask ourselves, do we believe within a 40 years span it will be on Mars? I think we just have to look at what have happened in the past. The future looks very, very interesting for us, and we can also see that the countries are back in the space race, and there's now lunar programs, there's deep space mining programs that are very, very interesting for our business. Okay, next slide. Can I have it in full screen? The picture, is that possible? I just showed you, I told you about the nanosatellite development. The nanosatellites are getting larger, but at the same time, the technology is miniaturized. And that means that the small satellites in our line of the business, in our segment of the business, is becoming more and more capable, and it's actually possible to compete with the much larger satellites. And that development is happening all the time. Our satellites are working in low Earth orbit, and that gives a number of new advantages. because there's no delay in the signal the closer you get to the Earth, and that's very important in the internet era of time, and it's something that is going to help the low Earth orbit space business quite substantially in the future. Launch to space is also developing very quickly. There's about 50 to 100 new rocket programs on the way in the world. Not all of them are needed, but there are big investments on the way with that. Excuse me. The applications is at the moment very much driven by Internet of Things. Internet of Things is something that is going to change a lot of businesses with equipment into service businesses when they can have contact with their installed base around the world. That is a very, very big driver. I think it's much bigger than many people are actually thinking of it is. Tracking of aircraft, communication, remote sensing, and things like that. There's many new applications being developed at the moment that is helping nanosatellites and the prospects of nanosatellites into the future. Next slide, please. We are part of disrupting a business. Just as the mainframe computers were disrupted, the landline telephones were disrupted. What happens in our business is that very big two-story satellites are becoming very small satellites. Shoebox satellite is sometimes said. You can see on the lower series of pictures. And what that gives possibilities for is constellations of satellites. Satellites that are covering the whole Earth for only very small or narrow business niches. And that is because the satellites is much less expensive and the economy with that is much more possible than it was previously. Okay, next slide. At GomSpace, we are making nanosatellites for customers who have demand for professional mission critical radio communications and surveillance solutions. It's very important that it's within those areas, and it's in the professional end of that we are focusing. So it's not amateur things, it's not light things, it's still very, very professional things that we are aiming for. And then we're aiming for making technology for others who are providing services and providing data for customers. So we are the technology provider, and also are aiming to maintain the installed base by the constellation management. Next slide, please. You can actually see that here. What we do is we make the components of the satellites and an important subset of the components. We assemble them to platforms. We put payloads on board of them so that they can perform a task. And then we are managing the constellation with our software that we are developing in Luxembourg. And then we can help the customers to obtain frequency allowances, what you call permission to launch the satellite, insurances and things like that. And we are selling that to those four segments that is shown on this picture. Next slide, please. And in the moment, we are working on the current commercial projects. We have a customer in France called Untitleded Labs, where we are sending up 2 satellites at the moment. We have a customer in the US called Hawkeye, where we are delivering some parts for the satellites, very important radio parts for the satellites. And then Clears in Luxembourg, where we are sending up 4 satellites at the moment. They are at the moment proving their business, and hopefully they will continue with constellations afterwards. At the same time, we are also working with other what we call IOD customers, in-orbit demonstration customers, that in the future will turn into constellations of satellites. During this, next slide, please. During this time of you could say readjustment in the business that have taken place over the last year or two, the commercial companies are looking to exploit them, to prove their business. The investors are holding a little bit back to see those proofs. The corona situation that we have had, we have been very lucky to have been able to form or in advance have formed a very strong relationship with the European Space Agency. That is done through Denmark, it's done through Luxembourg, and it's done through Sweden. And we've been lucky that they have started focusing on this area. And we are at the moment working on these three very, very important, very, very advanced projects. The Juventus projects, where we are going into deep space, trying to look at the trajectory of an asteroid and trying to land one of our satellites on the moon of an asteroid in some years. And this is something that in general is developing the capabilities, because the environment out there is very, very harsh. We have just received an order of a GomX-5, where we're preparing wideband communication very, very deep into space. That is a 12U satellite. You can see it on the picture down to the right, where you can see in a very advanced antenna that is flipping out, very big solar panels that can generate a lot of energy, a lot of solar power to run the equipment. This kind of satellite is very, very accomplished and can compete with much larger satellites for example, that is sent up in low Earth orbit at the moment. Then the Imago project, which is a satellite that is not traveling together with other satellites into deep space. It's actually traveling into deep space by itself with the propulsion units on board to take the whole trip driven by the sun into the space. That is also to look at deep space mining to see if there's minerals on some of those asteroids in the space. All this is driving our technology to a completely different level, and that has been done at the same time we are having these you could say harder times for everybody in the world, and the readjustment of the nanosatellite or the satellite business as such. Next slide, please. Our competitors. This is there's nothing new in this. We have three types of competitors. We have the established space companies that are selling much more expensive systems, much more systems that can do much more powerful things, but also, as I said, much more expensive and much more focused on smaller areas than this, and not so much suited for narrower niches. Then there's the vertical integrated companies. There's a tendency that, especially in the US, that some of the companies are not only developing themselves into a service company, but they are actually also building the satellites themselves. And it goes without saying that our aim in the future is to make that not worthwhile for them to do that. And then we have the direct competitors, where we are fighting the daily the fight for the customers. We have a little bit different advantages. And I think the game is more or less even in the broad terms. Next slide, please. The future for the nanosatellites or the satellite business looks very, very bright. Currently, the market, according to the satellite industry report, is about $300 billion per year. In 10 years or 30 years, the revenue is expected by some of these sector reports to be 10 times as high. At the same time, the satellites are becoming smaller. The prices are lower. That means the spread of the proliferation of the satellites to more and more countries, more and more players is going on. And as the satellites are becoming smaller, then numbers are expected to grow quite a bit in that. So this is the long-term business in this, and I think many of us, depending on how aged we are, will have grown up grandchildren or grown up children before we reach all that. But this is what we are part of, and this is what the future that we are looking into. Next slide, please. And I think it's known to many of you that we have had some rough times because we had big customers that could not pull through with the financing, and we had to readjust the company. We have had, you can see the order intake is going up quite a bit, and we have spread our customer base to a much larger, wider customer base. Although ESA is still quite a big one, it's still various different projects in various different countries. But that is something that is giving us a very, very good foundation to build on. Our sales is also going up. You can see the last 12 months is rising quite a bit. Our operating profit is also going up. We are aiming for positive cash flow on operations, and we are getting very, very close to that. What we are doing is we are working on continuing improving ourselves continuously. We have always been reasonably good on working capital, but you can see now we're very positive. We have quite a lot of prepayments that have come in, which helps the cash flow quite well. You can also see the employees have leveled out, and we are in fact hiring again and increasing the amount of staff in the company. Next slide, please. The main takeaways I have from here is that the financial situation is recovered. The cash flow has been positive over the last months, and much better than our internal expectations were. We are focusing strongly on continuous improvements, and we are very proud of our ability to improve the company. We are not there yet, but we feel that we have a very, very good traction, and we are confident that we will get there. The business is consolidating. The space business is consolidating. The startups are working to show results before they can gain the next investment phase, the investments into the company. And the established service players are considering to go into this segment. This is very interesting because the established service players are getting pressured because they need to go into low Earth orbit. They need to react on SpaceX Starlink's program if they are not to be outcompeted. And we need to have strong technology to doing that. And that is exactly what we believe that our collaboration with ESA have given us. So we are looking very much into that. So we have now on our way to have a very strong and very advanced nanosatellites that we can continue on and work with into the future. And this is something that in this period have been backed with government money, but nevertheless something that is very, very important for us to turn into growing business afterwards. And that is our focus. And we are looking brighter than things than we have into the future than we have done over the last year or year and a half or something like that. So this was my presentation. I hope that gave some clarity on where we are as a company now, and I hope you can see that I'm smiling.
Thank you very much, Niels, for this interesting presentation. To start this Q&A session, part of the presentation, I would like to acknowledge that this company is a very technical company, making it a bit difficult for people who are new to the case to fully grasp the interesting aspects of this company. I would therefore like to just inform everybody participating on the line that we do have a publicly available in-depth analysis of GomSpace available on our ABG Introduce platform to accompany this interesting presentation from Niels. But to start the Q&A session properly, Niels, you do mention that there has been this bit turbulent period in the last couple of years, which you have now sort of recovered from, I would say. Predominantly due to this Sky and Space company that were lacking funding internally on their part. We have, however, starting to see some indications that this Sky and Space program is sort of on a way to a relaunch. Is this something that you have picked up on or see in any way impacting GomSpace in the future?
No, it's not. We are obviously following the situation, but we know nothing. We don't know anything more than anybody else does on that.
All right. Thank you very much. Just to be clear on that, and to make it a bit more commercial, this Q&A session for the participants, I was wondering if you could help just elaborate a bit more on the competitive landscape and how you see. You mentioned this integration as well. and consolidation in the market. If you could elaborate a little bit on that, I think that'll be quite helpful for people to really grasp how this environment is operating. And then if you could follow up with some of your competitive advantages that makes GomSpace stand out. Thank you.
Yeah. The first part was what was that? Sorry.
So the competitive landscape.
The competitive landscape was, as I see it, we obviously have a number of direct competitors, and we've more or less been in the business together since it started, and we know each other well, and we make business with each other, and are in a way colleagues of that. Obviously, we are also fighting for the orders occasionally, but we are also in a situation where it is an advantage to be in particular countries. We are not winning orders in the UK where UK money is backing companies in the UK. That is not possible for us. We can win projects in particular countries where ESA money is going in our direction and can support a certain order of that kind. So there's a lot of what's it called, barriers also for the competition. We are more in competition with the directly commercial orders with different what's it called, private companies where there's no backing from government money, and on those we have a direct competition. I believe that the European companies, or those who are more or less European, I believe we are more or less even on that. We have a slightly different strong capabilities. Some are strong on power, some are strong on radio, but it depends a lot. And then I think it's also a matter of how full is the order book when you are if you're not so full, you're more eager than if you are better off with that. And it has been the buyer's market for some time. That's my feeling, that has been the case. But I also think that all the companies, all of us, even though nanosatellites are less expensive to make, there's also an expectation that they are not very expensive. So we are maybe a little bit like the windmill companies were during the time that it was fantastic to be able to do what we're doing, but we need to work to be less expensive. We need to make more efficient companies. We need to be very, very strong on quality, very, very strong on delivery times, very, very strong on prices, and still be able to make good money. Otherwise, our business will not grow as quickly as it can be. Yeah. So we don't believe in skimming. We believe in trying to work to be more and more efficient. That's one direction. Another direction is also to be big on consolidation. In general, one should say that consolidating a business that is growing doesn't really make sense, because it's you can go out and get orders, but it's also a business where you are growing and then you are contracting and then you're growing and contracting. And I feel that we have had some contraction in a year and a half or something like that have led to the incentive also to think of mergers and acquisitions in that period. And I think there's different ways to go with that. We have chosen a way of continuous improvement to try to be as efficient as possible.
Thank you very much, Niels. In order to keep the timeline, I think we'll have to finish here. But again, thank you very much for participating today. It was a pleasure listening to your presentation and for the Q&A. I hope you have a good day, and thank you to everybody who called in to listen as well. Bye-bye.